morning. We're going to use this assignment, how much wood, to review using a number line to solve a problem where we have a whole number subtracting a mixed number. So we have this sample assignment. Each of the Boy Scouts has 5 feet of wood. For a project, they use a certain amount of wood. How much wood does each person have left? So we have Blake used 2 1/3 feet, Chris used 1 3/4 feet, DeAndre used 4 5/6 feet, Hector used 3 4/12 feet, and Tyrone used 2 6/8 feet. So our job is to fill in this column right here and figure out how much wood was left. So we will do a number line for each boy. So thinking about Blake. All right, Blake used 2 1/3 feet. So we know that each boy started out with 5 feet. So I'm going to make a number line. And my end number is going to be 5 because that's the amount of wood that each boy started with. Well, I already know how to subtract whole numbers using a number line, so I can simplify this by showing that 5 take away 2 gets me to 3. All right, so I also know that I have to subtract this fractional chunk. So I'm going to put one more whole number here because I will be taking away part of a whole. I will be taking away 1/3 of a whole. So now that I've already done my whole number 2, I can see that I'm working with thirds now because of this denominator. So I divide this chunk into thirds. I know that I'm taking away one more third. So that leaves me with 2 and there's 1/3, there's 2/3. So my answer is 2 2/3. So what we just did was role modeled 5 minus 2 1/3 equals 2 2/3. This number cannot be simplified, so my final answer is 2 2/3 of a foot. So I'm going to write that on my sheet of paper, that the amount of wood left is 2 2/3 of a foot. So next we're working with Chris. Chris used 1 3/4 feet of wood. So we have the same situation. We know that each boy started with 5 feet of wood. So I'm going to make a number line, and since I'm doing subtraction, that's why I'm starting on this end instead of my 0 end, because I'm figuring out how much wood is left. So this is a subtraction problem. So Chris has 1 3/4 feet. So I'm doing 5, take away 1 3/4. So I'm trying to see what that equals. So when I take away the whole number 1, I know that that gets me to 4. But I still have part of a whole to deal with. So I'm going to make one more whole number here. I can tell by my denominator that I'm taking away fourths. So I'm going to divide this into fourths. Remember, our shortcut way for fourths is divide in half. Divide each chunk into half. So I'm taking away 3/4. 1, 2, 3. So now I figure out that I have 3 1/4. So Chris has 3 1/4 feet of wood left. So now I'm ready to write down my answer. I would write down Chris's name and write that he had 3 1/4 feet wood left. Because remember, I'm figuring out how much wood does each person have left. Okay, pause the video, go get you a sheet of paper and a pencil because you're going to do the next 3 with me. Your title is How Much Wood? Skip a line, write DeAndre, skip a line, Hector, Tyrone. Pause the video if needed. Okay, I've written our fractions there just as a reminder, but you do not need to write those unless you want to, just so I didn't have to keep flipping back and forth with the paper for you. All right, so we're going to work out DeAndre. So make you a number line. You can just go down below. Remember, put you an arrow on each end. All right, remember that all the boys are working with 5 feet. Your number's not always going to be 5. It depends on the number that you're working with. So DeAndre has used 4 and 5 6. So let's write that problem there so you'll have it. 5 minus 4 and 5 6 feet. So we have 5, take away this whole number 4. So 5 minus 4 gets you down to 1. But I need to make our next whole number because I still have part of a whole that I'm taking away. So my next whole number would be 0. So I can tell by my denominator that I'm working with 6. So I need to divide this chunk right here into 6. So remember your shortcut way for dividing into 6. You can divide in half and make you a tick mark. And then each half is divided into thirds. All right, so now we're taking away 5 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just took away 5 6. So I can see that that leaves me with 1 6. My whole number is 0, so I do not write 0 and 1 6. I simply write 1 6. This number cannot be reduced, so 1 6 is my final answer. So come back up to your chart and write that DeAndre had 1 6 of a foot of wood left. All right, we're going to do the same thing for Hector. So skip a couple lines. Draw you a number line. All right, remember that you are starting with 5. So Hector has used 3 and 4/12 feet of wood. So our subtraction sentence is 5 minus 3 and 4/12. Try to solve this problem on your own. Submit your answer. Once you have submitted your answer, then we'll go over the problem. Submit on the video screen. It'll pop up for you. So 5 take away 3 is going to get me to 2. I know that I have a fractional chunk to deal with. I have part of a whole, so I need one more whole number. And I can see this time I'm going to divide this chunk into 12ths. So I probably don't want to make my tick mark right here because I'm going to be making lots of little hops there. So I'm going to use logic and give me some decent room. So my next whole number would be 1. And I can tell by my denominator that I've divided this into 12ths. So remember your shortcut way for even numbers. I can divide in half. That's going to get me 6. And I can divide the 6 into half again. And then remember, I'm dividing into thirds. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 chunks. All right, so now I'm ready to subtract my 4/12. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now I need to see where I have ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 twelfths. Oh, I forgot to write that I took away 4 twelfths. So I have ended on 1 and 8 twelfths. But I know that this number can be simplified. One way I know is because of the McCall hint. They're both even numbers, so I can always divide by 2. So we'll start with that method. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Hey, I see I still have even numbers, so I can divide again by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Another way I could have done this is to think about, well, both 8 and 12 can be divided by 4. So 8 divided by 4 is 2. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Don't forget, I still had a whole number over here, so my final answer is 1 and 2/3. So in your hectare area, let me go back to that, you are ready to write 1 and 2/3 feet for hectare. Now I want you to solve for Tyrone. Submit your answer, and then the video will take you to the explanation. So Tyrone, we are making a number line. Again, it starts at 5. My subtraction problem I'm doing for Tyrone is 5 subtract 2 and 6/8. So my whole number is 2. So I know that 5 minus 2 gets me to 3. I can see that I am taking away part of a whole. So I need another whole number there. So right below would be 2. This time I want to divide that into 8s. So I can go half, 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 and then in half. So I have 8s. So I'm going to take away 6 of those 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I just took away 6 8s. So my answer is 2 and 1, 2. 2 8s. So that would equal 2 and 2 8s. I can see that these are 2 even numbers, so I can divide that by 2 to simplify it. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So don't forget your whole number. So that means your answer is 2 and 1/4. So go back to your Tyrone area. 2 and 1/4 feet. So there's a part 2 to this assignment. How much wood did Blake, DeAndre, and Hector use? So remember, this first column was how much they used. This is how much was left. So I want to use this first column to figure out my answer. So we had been subtracting, but now they want a total amount of wood that's going to be used. So that means I'm going to need to add these 3 together. So I'm going to move my paper for a second so that you can see the board. So I'm working with Blake had 2 1/3 that he used. DeAndre had 4 and 5/6 that he used. And then Hector had 3 and 4/12 that he used. All right, I could use a number line if I wanted to. I could also think about this as adding my whole numbers plus adding my fractions. So I'm gonna, and there's multiple ways that you can do this. So you might have seen a different way on a different video, and there's no right or wrong to this as long as you're coming up with the same answer. So we could use a combination of number lines. We could use a combination of area models. We could also use the standard algorithm for this too with no modeling. So I'm going to use the standard algorithm, And I am going to actually add my whole numbers first. So I have 2 plus 4 plus 3. So I know that that's going to get me to 9. But I still have these fractions that I need to deal with. 1/3, 5/6, and 4/12. So you watched a video about the least common multiple this morning. So I know that 3 has 12 as a multiple because I could go 3, 6, 9, 12. I know that 6 has 12 as a multiple because I could go 6, 12. And then, of course, 12 is a multiple of 12. So instead of multiplying these three numbers together to get me a like denominator, I'm going to use 12, and that's less work for me. So all I have to do is recopy the 4/12. But for the others, I need to find equivalent fractions that have 12 as a denominator. So at this point, I could use a model to decide. I could use a number line. I could also use the multiplication like our last lesson in actual school was. So I think about, well, how can I get from 3 to 12? And I can get from 3 to 12 by multiplying by 4. So I can scrunch that in there. And remember, whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So 1 times 4 is 4. So 1/3 is equivalent to 4/12. So 4, 5, 6. 6 times what gets me to 12? 6 times 2 gets me to 12. And whatever I do to the denominator, I have to do to the numerator. So 5 times 2 is 10. So now I can add these three fractions because I have like denominators. So remember, I'm going to keep my denominator because you never add the denominator. Oops, you can't really see that. So 12 right there. So 4 plus 10 plus 4 is 18. So when I add those three fractions together, I get 18/12. But I can see that this is an improper fraction. So I need to change it to a mixed number. So I take away 1 whole. So if I'm working with 12ths, 1 whole would be 12/12. So 18 minus 12 is 6. So I know that this is 6/12. I also know that 6/12 can be reduced to 1/2. Because I could think about both of those numbers are divisible by 6. So I could say 6 divided by 6 is 1. 12 divided by 6 is 2. Or I see that they're both even, and I could keep dividing until I ran out of even numbers. So I had 1 whole that I took away, plus this 1/2. So I have changed 18/12 to 1/2. But don't forget about your 9 over here that you had from adding your whole numbers. So to get my final answer, I'm taking the 9 from my whole numbers plus my 1/2 from the fractions, because you've been working on doing this with mixed numbers. So that gives me a final answer of 10.5 feet. So I have just solved that Blake, DeAndre, and Hector together used 10.5 feet of wood. So now you're going to try how much wood did Chris and Tyrone used. So on your sheet of paper, you solve for Chris and Tyrone. Remember that Chris used 1 3/4 feet of wood. Tyrone used 2 6/8 feet of wood. So write down what you need on your paper, solve your answer, submit your answer, and then the video will continue. So hopefully you got 4.5 feet. Remember, Chris had 1 3/4 and Tyrone had used 2 6/8. So I can add those two together. I do not have like denominators, so at this point all I can do is add the whole number. I need to get like denominators. So I could go 4 times 8 and get me a like denominator of 32. But I could also think about the least common multiple of both of these. I know that 8 is a multiple of 4. I could count 4, 8, 12. So I heard 8 in there. So I'm going to change 3/4 to have a denominator of 8. So 4 times what equals 8? 4 times 2. So whatever I do to the denominator, I do to the numerator. So 3 times 2 is 6. So then this one's already using 8. So a lot of times this can eliminate a step for me if I'm very familiar with my multiplication chart and can work with multiples. So 6/8 plus 6/8 gets me to 12/8. I know that that's an improper fraction, so I'm going to change it to a mixed number. So I take away 1 whole. Since I'm working with 8s, 1 whole would be 8/8. So that leaves me with 4/8. So I took away that one. And I know that 4/8 can be simplified because they're both even. I can keep dividing it by 2. And I see I have more even, so I keep dividing it by 2 to get down to 1/2. Or again, if I know my division facts very well, I know that both of these numbers can be divisible by 4. So 4 divided by 4 takes me straight to 1. 8 divided by 4 takes me straight to 2. But don't forget, you had this 3 that you originally used. So 3 plus 1.5 got you your final answer of 4.5 feet. All right, so there's another step to this. Using your work from part 2, 10.5 feet and 4.5 feet. How much wood did all 5 boys use in their project? Take a moment to solve this and then submit your answer. So your final answer was 15 feet. You could have taken the 10.5 feet and the 4.5 feet and add those together. Hey, you already have like denominators. So 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1 whole. 10 and 4 is 14. Well, I've got this 1 whole to add on, so 14 plus 1 is 15 feet. So you are going to complete a similar assignment to this on your own and submit your answers. So I'm posting this next assignment as a PDF, so you'll see this exact form, how much string. What I recommend, you pull it up and set you up a data chart. Since everyone's name starts with different letters, you could simply go A, B, C, F, K if you would like. You probably want to make you a table that says string used, so I just put used, and string left, so I just put left. Your actual answers will be submitted throughout a quiz. So I will not need to see your notebook paper and your scrap work. Your answers will be submitted as a quiz. But if you have questions about it and you're consulting me about your questions, always have your scrap work handy so that I can ask you questions about your scrap work. So the first thing I would do after this video, pull up the PDF of how much string, set up your paper, then complete your work and submit your answers as a quiz. Great job, everybody. I appreciate you doing all your work and staying caught up with things.